Katie here from the Scrappy Sisters, and I am up today with my next tutorial in our DIY Advent Calendar series. And today, as you will have seen if you watched Jess's opening video this morning, that I have made a kind of an announcement layout for Thomas's birth. So Jess's most recent son, who was born in September. I made a similar layout for Jack, her firstborn, and she subtly reminded me the other day that there was a space on the wall for a layout from me about Thomas. And I said to her, it's under control. I had always planned to make one in this Scrappy Advent Calendar series, so this is it. So it will be going up in a frame on display, and you will have seen that I gave it to Jess already framed. And so I'm keeping that in mind as I'm making the layout, that it is, I guess, for public viewing. Sometimes our layouts go into albums and, they only get looked at every now and again, which is fine. But I knew that this one was sort of going out on display. So you can see here, I had decided that I wanted to mat my white cardstock onto the pattern paper. I am using Kaiser Craft's Hide and Seek collection, which is quite a recent collection from Kaiser Craft, and it's all obviously, I guess, aimed at babies, children, and it's a super cute collection. I really like it. And so I wanted to keep the inside of that paper, so I gutted the middle of it, and now I am going to stick down the white cardstock. The one thing that I don't love about Kaiser Craft is that the paper is quite thin when you compare it to, I guess, other pattern paper on the market. And it does make it a bit more difficult to work with if you're using the piece of pattern paper as your background. So I don't usually do that when I'm working with Kaiser Craft because it's a bit too flimsy. And so I always use white cardstock, which I do most of the time anyway, but particularly with Kaiser Craft. But I really wanted a bit of that pattern paper peeking through, so I decided to do the sort of border. And now I am just working out how I want this, I guess, to come together. I had already done some thinking off camera, and I'd done some prep work. So, for example, I have already worked out the thickers and that type of thing, the thing that takes a bit of time. But I don't know embellishment-wise what I'm going to do yet. So, yeah, I'm just sort of playing it by ear, but I have done, I guess, a little bit of thinking. So I am backing the photo of Thomas on white cardstock. This photo was taken technically on his second day. I didn't have a photo of him from day one. He was born at a pretty reasonable hour, 8 o'clock at night, but I didn't go and see him until the next day. I was on babysitting duty for his older brother, and so we went in the next morning to visit and for Jack to meet his little baby brother for the first time. So that was super cute. So I didn't get to see him on his first day, and I did take this photo. He does have a few scratches on his cheek, which often happens with newborns. Their fingernails are a bit long, and they don't always have any control really, and they scratch their face. I could have printed this in black and white, but by the time I thought about that, I was already well through this layout. So if Jess wants to change the photo over, she of course can do that. I knew that I wanted to put some larger pieces of paper in the background, mainly because his name is quite long, and I didn't want his name to be floating, the thickers to sort of be floating in nothing. So I wanted them, I guess, anchored to the pattern paper. So I had already thought that I would put some larger pieces of pattern paper. And originally I liked this grey paper with the white script, and I quite liked the mustard. And so I was going for that, and I was happy with that. And then I went to stick down the grey paper, and I was like, oh, I quite like that leaf pattern on the background. I knew the Hide and Seek collection has an animal theme, and so I knew that there was going to be quite a few sort of baby animals on the page, and so I think the leaf pattern really caught my eye. And then I decided to use the scripty, the grey with the white script as an accent as well, and added an extra square of that or piece of that to the layout. And then I still and ah about the mustard colour. I do like the mustard colour, and I do think it works. So it's got a white dot and a mustard coloured paper, but it's not a colour that I scrap with very often, and it's not a colour I'm particularly comfortable with, so I do end up taking it off. I was I said I was going to keep it on there. It looks fine. But yeah, for me, I couldn't make it work easily in my mind. So I do take it off and just stick with what you can see on screen now. So I'm going to stick those down. Again, I try to keep them relatively straight. But as you well know, I am not a measurer. And so I don't measure. I just eyeball it. I do use my grid mat that's behind me to help me line up a little bit, but I certainly don't measure. Jess is much more precise than I am, shall we say, in her scrapbooking, particularly with measuring and things like that. So I wanted to make sure it was relatively straight for her benefit, because that's how she likes to scrap. But for me, I am much more relaxed, shall we say, about that type of thing. And I don't really mind if it's not straight. That's what scrapbooking is, really, isn't it? It's just a, individual take on things. So you can see me there. I haven't quite committed to where I'm sticking this paper down because I want the name, the thickers to fit nicely. So I use my little baking paper with the thickers on as a guide. As I said, I did do those thickers off camera before I started recording because I knew that would take me quite some time because Thomas's name is so long. And it also limited my thicker options because I needed, R's and O's and S's. And so I had to make sure I had all of those things. So my thicker choices were a little bit limited, but that's okay. So you can see here I'm going to edit out the sticking down the thickers once I'd figured out where I wanted to put them, because you don't really need to see me stick down a million thickers. I did get the ruler out. I didn't end up using it. I just used the paper as a guide for where I was sticking the thickers. And now I'm going to play around with my embellishments. So most of these animals that I use, in fact, I think all of them actually come from the 12 by 12 paper or a 12 by 12 paper, which I have fussy cut. So they're super cute because they're quite big. You do get a lot of animals in the die cut pack too, but they are a bit smaller. So I used the animals from the 12 by 12 paper. Again, the only downside to doing that is it is a thin paper, so that makes these embellishments quite thin. But that's okay. If you can get past that, they look super cute in the bigger form, particularly in this kind of a layout where it's going up on the wall in Thomas's nursery. And then Jess can add it to an album when she feels the need to take it down and maybe replace it with something a bit more modern or a more recent photo of Thomas as he gets older. So you can see me here playing around with embellishing, and I decided to put the arrow sort of border strip down under the word Christopher, and I'm working out kind of how I want to cluster the little animals. So I've got a bear and an owl up the top. Underneath Thomas's photo, I've got a fox and a hedgehog slash, I guess, echidna. We're in Australia, so, we can call it an echidna. And then a little bird at the moment near the word Thomas on the left there. And I'm just sort of working out how else I want, or what else I want to include in the clusters. I don't end up using much from the ephemera pack, surprisingly. I pull out those two little leaves and as well as the little arrow border strips under the name and the date. That's actually all I use, I think, from the ephemera pack. I do know that I want to put something else with the bird on the left, and that takes me a bit of time to figure out. And I think these cloud wood veneers are super cute, and I had already decided that I wanted to use those kind of before I started the layout, just because, I don't know, they're clouds, it's a baby. I just think it's cute. So I'm happy enough with the placement that I'm going to start sticking things down. So I put away the ephemera pieces that I'm not using, and then I'm going to stick down and commit to what I've got on the page. I don't want to overthink it. I'm not someone that takes a long time with my scrapping usually. So I'm committing, I'm sticking it down, and we're going with it. And in the end, I'm really happy with how it turns out. So I'm popping up the owl on some foam dots, and then sticking him up there as well. And then I am going to put this little leaf and tuck him underneath. And I do end up coming back and adding a few more leaves from the sticker sheet. You can sort of see in the corner there's some leaves on that sticker sheet. So I end up using those. I end up also with the fox down the bottom that I'm sticking now. I put double layer of foam dots on him, just because he was popping up over the photo, and the photo already had one layer of foam dots plus obviously a few paper layers in the photo, and I wanted to make sure that the fox was sort of sat above the photo, so I do end up double foam dotting him and then just putting a single foam dot on his head that sits on top of the photo, and the same with his tail. And then I'm tucking in the little leaf piece underneath, and then just having a play around to see if I want the echidna / hedgehog or if I want a different animal. And I do end up going back to the echidna because mainly of the colour, to be honest. I liked that contrast, whereas, you know, the bunny was cute and that, but they were too close in colour to the fox, and I liked the contrast of the echidna with the fox. And here is where I'm using the border strip of leaves that came on the sticker sheet and cutting them apart and adding them to the clusters. So I add them to the top right, as you saw there, and I'm just adding them to the bottom right now. And just because I had sort of 3 leaves, I'm just adding 3 to each. So I'm adding 2 of the sticker leaves to those 2 clusters to make 3 leaves in each cluster. And now I'm going to figure out what I want to do on my left cluster above the name Thomas. And I wanted another bird. My problem was there was one in the sticker sheet. Well, there were a couple in the sticker sheet, but I'd already used a couple of them. And so the only one that I had left was exactly the same as that mustard one that's already on the page. And so I went back to the 12 by 12 paper and saw that there was another bird that was facing in the opposite direction. That was the blue colour. And so I decided to fussy cut that one out and add him to the page as well. So it takes me a bit of fiddling around to figure out how I want them to sort of sit, and I do work out that I do overlap them slightly and have the mustard bird kind of hanging off the edge of the layout, so I can trim him down, and I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go with the sticking. I'm going to commit. And I'm sticking him down and popping up the mustard bird on foam, and then adding in some of the leaves as well, like I did with the other clusters. So trimming off a couple of leaves from that border strip and adding them in as well. So I end up adding 3 leaves. One of them I sort of need to tuck under the mustard bird and the T for Thomas, but I can figure that out, and it doesn't ruin anything when I peel up the T, which is good. So I'm able to tuck him under and get a good placement there. And then I'm pretty much done. I'm going to stick down the border arrows down the bottom with wet glue, just using my Tombow. And once I've stuck those down, I am going to commit to keeping the cloud wood veneer, one in each of the clusters, because I think they're super cute, and I want to add them in. So I do end up sticking those down and going with it, committing. So I'm going to stick those down, and then I think all I'm doing is adding rhinestones and Heidi Swap Colour Shine, and this layout's done. So again, I think all up it took me about half an hour. Again, I had done that prep off camera, and yeah, we were done after half an hour. So I was pretty happy about that. Made it super quick, and you'll see when you've seen Jess's unboxing video that I've framed it all up for her ready to hang. She didn't need to worry about getting her own frame. So you can see there I've got some rhinestones. I'm going with the green rhinestones, and then again they're kind of I don't know what colour you'd call them, the other ones. They're not pink, but maybe slightly pink. I don't know what colour they are, but I didn't have enough of the green, so I just added in a couple of the others. I could have grabbed some from my stash, but, they were on my desk. We went with those. So I'm just adding the Heidi Swap Colour Shine. I'm going with my favourite, which is the navy. I love the navy. I think it is my absolute favourite that Heidi Swap has done. I will be sad when it goes because I haven't found anything similar. And I'm also going to use the gold, which, again, I know they've been discontinued, and the gold is a cult favourite, and I do love it, but I have found something to replace it, so I'm not so worried about using up the gold, but definitely once that navy goes, I will be sad, and I will be on the hunt for something similar. So if you have any suggestions, let me know down below so I can look it up. But yes, the gold, I think there's a few other people that do gold, so not too worried about that. But yeah, the navy, I just really like it. So here are the close-ups, and you can see that finished layout. I hope you've enjoyed this video. We will see you in tomorrow's. Have a great day. Bye.